feeling when your life looks great on paper, but something deep inside just doesn't feel right? Like you're living somebody else's version of success? My guest today knows that feeling intimately because he's lived it for nearly 20 years. Aaron Scott built a career most people only dream about. Wall Street, global financial markets, his own multi-strategy hedge fund. But at the height of all his success, he made a choice that shocked everyone around him. He walked away from it all. Today, Aaron is the author of Amazon's #1 bestseller, Before We Forget, The Guide to Personal and Collective Awakening, and the host of the Evolve podcast. He's on a mission to help people see through the illusion that keeps us trapped, the system of capitalism, religion, education, and the media that's shaped how we see ourselves and what we believe is possible. What Aaron brings to this conversation is rare. He's not only speaking from theory, he's speaking from the inside. He knows how these systems work because he's been a part of them, and he's here to help us understand how to break free of them. This is going to be a deep one, so let's dive in. Welcome, Aaron Scott.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Thank you for the intro.
I appreciate this because it kind of echoes exactly what I did about 5 months ago, which is just rip apart my entire life and completely take a new life path. So I hope this echoes to my audience as a good talk. So can you take us back to the time when when you were back in Wall Street? What did your internal conflict feel like?
Yeah, so I kind of have always, to be honest with you, before at the onset of my career, I really always had this kind of deep understanding that I had to sever a part of myself in order to accommodate my ambition, if you will, right? And there are kind of like cliches and colloquials that try to characterize this, but I kind of lived it, right? And I really kind of can describe it as sort of this consistent, constant sort of chipping away at myself, and not just kind of like my moral compass, but it was really just by virtue of kind of who I am, right? And what does that mean? Well, I kind of knew that I first of all didn't like my job, right? I was doing it as a means to an end. I was, but kind of still clinging on to the sort of ideological construct that us in the West have sort of been fed, where you feed your ambition, you will have financial success, you will have security, and you'll be able to do and acquire, right? Whatever you like, whatever you please. So I think this is sort of the again kind of like scaffolding that most of us, I guess, kind of lean on, right? And this just again, I just felt this kind of inherent friction going on that path. It ended up materializing in sort of more externally visible ways, where my relationships were dwindling. My deep connections with people were becoming connections based on utility, where really kind of again this sense of self, this sense of self-worth was starting to kind of fade away into something I couldn't really identify. And after kind of like 20 years of doing this and kind of going through this, I kind of hit a wall, and things weren't, to be fair, things weren't. I was taking kind of a lot of risks later on, and things weren't really kind of materializing the way they quote unquote should have. And I kind of started questioning, what is going on here? What am I doing? Who am I? Serious things were on the rocks. I've got 2 young children. My marriage was in disarray. I wasn't seeing my kids, and I was kind of on these failing ventures where I was kind of high stakes at play, could destroy my life kind of a situation. And one might argue that one of these kind of did. And I kind of like took a step back and I said, what's the deal here? And I have been, I've just kind of quickly, I've been looking into societal constructs, sort of individual identity values for quite a long time. I studied philosophy and economic theory in college, so I've always kind of had a quench for this, and this has kind of been in the backdrop. And I think it actually kind of lent itself well to kind of my book and where this took me. But I guess that kind of I think gives you a decent synopsis as to what brought me to this sort of threshold.
Mhm. I do have a question in that regard because I've experienced this myself, and I wonder, looking back now, if it's not needed um, to go through this kind of awakening yourself. I know highlighting it is a good practice, but I also do you find there's value that you've gone through it?
I think there's tremendous value. I think that we can get into the universal order and universal laws in a bit, but I think that with depth on any side, right, with extremes on any side, you got to reach heightened levels of awareness because it's pulling you deeper into yourself and it's pulling your inquiry deeper as well, right? So you're looking, you're searching, you're trying to kind of piece together the puzzle. And I think without that, you don't quite get there. And in truth, a lot of these discussions are going to, I think, resonate with people like like me who kind of I've gone through something like this, but don't really have the words to kind of put to paper, or don't really have the method of sort of dissecting, uh, way more so than somebody just kind of peripherally on an academic level, even, right, kind of digesting what I'm saying, right? So excuse me. So I think that absolutely. I mean, for a person to have gone through this, to have experienced this, you get far deeper insight. And that the great part about this conversation, however, is that it doesn't need to just be relegated to those people, right? There is a place for it with those, and I think that these discussions can, people can kind of use people with my experience. Well, there's a big influx of light coming in here. Can use his experiences, whether they've had them or not, individually, to help improve their life, to help gain a stronger foothold in their anything from their sense of self worth to their methods of self improvement to it sort of transcends many planes. It also lends itself to a discourse on society and the way that we've structured civilization, right? I certainly think that these sort of acute experiences add tremendous depth and tremendous value, but they don't have to be considered to be relegated to someone who individually or uniquely experienced them. It keeps the door open.
That's a great understanding of that. I the It's hard not to separate the like I've been through this shit type of deal. Um, that's kind of where I'm at. Is like I still I'm past the rumination part. That's a big thing that I want to elaborate. Like when we're talking about going deep into yourself and trying to understand, it's not rumination. It's not repeating the same thing over and over again. It's really looking at yourself and what you value. Um, so this kind of brings us into the to your book. Before we forget, um, what are we forgetting?
I'm forgetting quite a number of things, but I think the most important thing is we are forgetting first and foremost that we are not the sort of indoctrination, we are not the program that we have been fed. We are also not just the material body, right, existing in this world, um, satiating our repetitive desires, shoving things down our, into our pie hole, and just kind of like accumulating, and like it's almost like we've sanctified a sort of immature, like childlike experience. This is sort of like the blueprint of life. This is not looked at this way, but in truth, if you look at it, it's kind of like a bunch of people running around trying to accumulate, hoard power, get what they want. I mean, this is not an advanced structure of civilization, right? So people have forgotten that if for sort of their deep internal connection to something deeper. We've also forgotten that life has meaning. And then I know this sounds kind of crazy, but this isn't the meaning like, oh, I live because I love my children. This is not meaning, right? They add value, and they're important to you, but this is not like meaningful things. And when everything is for sale, especially in kind of this paradigm where we're economy, capitalism, dominate sort of the paradigm. When everything's for sale, nothing is meaning, right? When everything's for sale, nothing's sacred, and we lose sight of that, and we don't even know in many ways, I think, how to look at ourselves and how to look at the world around us without kind of falling into these sort of default setting traps, because we've grown up in it, we've accepted them, we've I call them, accepting inherited beliefs, never questioning, just kind of going along with it, going with the flow, looking around us, seeing what everyone else is doing. This is, I mean, this sort of mentality, this consciousness lends itself to conformity, dullness. It doesn't breed creativity. And so look, there are a number of things that we've forgotten, but I think the essence is that we've forgotten sort of who we truly are, and that we are complex, um, emotional, thinking, spiritual beings. And this isn't the spiritual in like you know the dogmatic, doctrine-based, edicts from some Abrahamic faith. I mean, this isn't like, believing that you're talking to angels. And I mean, we're talking about, and I go into this in the book. I talk about kind of, there is a divine code to life. There are universal laws. There's a universal program, and it's about people kind of coming back in contact with this knowledge, coming back in contact with what this divine operating system is, right? And understanding their place in the natural world, not in some ethereal, abstract realm that we've been told is our connection to the divine, or whatever sort of construct that might be. So that was a lot. There was a lot to remember there, but I think this kind of gives you a foray into sort of how I look at this idea of what we forgot.
That kind of alludes to a question that I have. Do you believe in the collective consciousness theory?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the collective consciousness is really just a colloquial for sort of like how the masses, or how most people, how collectively we discern, how collectively we go about our daily lives, how collectively we approach situations. Right. I mean, we miss, I think, understand, and in many ways don't look at these ideas of propaganda, or these ideas of social conformity, or these ideas of how we might be quote unquote manipulated, right? I mean, but we're not necessarily manipulated in the kind of the sinister ways, but in truth, we are fed a structure, and we are fed sort of narratives, and we are fed many different stories from childhood to even into adulthood, whether again across a number of different planes that we then assume to be our reality. This is the composition of collective consciousness. This is how we collectively, right, interact with our reality. So absolutely, I agree with it. I think to discount that and to disregard that is to be unaware of kind of how we are all connected, and how we impact one another.
It's funny because the reason I believe in it is because quantum physics is like starting to chip at that bound, and we're starting to see. I think not too long ago, I saw a research report showcasing that our energy leaves our body when we die. Things like that we couldn't quantify before, and now we're starting to. And it brings back into the question, like, what is reality? What is human consciousness? Um, so
If I might, yeah, quickly, like so.
yeah,
So I mean, I didn't get into quantum physics, but yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you look at what quantum physics is revealing, I mean, it's tremendous. It's like these are landmark sort of revelations. I mean, they're not kind of discussed openly. They haven't become kind of the mainstream part of like the collective human consciousness yet. But when we have been fed our entire life this understanding of our reality, of our understanding of ourselves and the world around us, based on this scientific materialist construct, where consciousness was to arise from some fixed form, from some fixed object, where nothing has meaning unless it can be independently observed by some external observer and then quantified, right? I mean, this is the world that we grew up in. But what quantum physics is telling us is again, it's transcendent in that we are being told that, or being shown right now mathematically, now scientifically, that consciousness is the fundamental nature of our reality. These aren't fixed forms anymore. These aren't particles. These aren't, for people who don't understand that, but the table or the rock isn't isn't the evolutionary kind of foundation, right? This is a tremendous revelation, because what that tells us is that there is a deeper intelligence, there is a deeper underlying structure, and I talk about this in my book as well, where when we understand the idea of source, or the idea of God, or this is really what the quantum field, or what the one is, what ancient mystics, ancient civilizations knew. This information has been suppressed, obviously, across generations, across civilizations. But the point is that when you can make a connection with a intelligent field, a probabilistic based field from which consciousness exists, to which your consciousness is a part of, right? This is a massive, again, connection, because you are now actually in reality, right? In a place where you can kind of like touch and point to. You are now showing people that you are connected to something greater, and this lends itself also to this idea of how the universe even itself was created. We've been told that the universe was created billions of years ago, and this is just how it is, baby. Like, we're just living it. Well, no, because neuroscience and quantum physics is showing us that we create our reality, right? We are actually the artists here. We are actually structuring our reality. So we are part of this consciousness, this conscious field, and now we're learning that through neuroscience, and again through the way that our brain reshapes itself, through the way our neural networks restructure themselves, we are learning that we are creators as well, right? And not just in the abstract sense that you can talk about this, right? Like, we are actually rewiring, we are actually structuring our reality. So we've kind of entered across the threshold where our entire sense of our place in the universe, our entire sense of our place within ourselves, our entire understanding of how we interact needs to shift dramatically, and it hasn't yet, right? But and that's why these topics are kind of relegated to the fringe. But eventually, hopefully, people will value and understand the meaningfulness of these revelations and of these discoveries in science and mathematics, which again are important to hold on to when we have these discussions, because we need something to really grab onto to substantiate and to legitimize this discourse, which I really try very hard to do in my book, because I think it's important for people to see clearly with facts, with connections to actual data points that allow them to then say, okay, what's being said here makes sense. How I might need to shift my perspective on myself is anchored in actual data points and in actual information.
It's interesting you say that. So for the audience, the way I would break this down is, if you go to Netflix, there's a movie called The Disappearance. Great movie. Jason Segel talks all about how if we basically unalive ourselves, we come back in a similar but different reality. Basically meaning we shape our own realities. And as we go through it, we start learning a little bit more about ourselves and able to project a better outcome for each other. Or it's kind of how it's how to break it down in the smallest, most entertaining way, I think. Because I get that these these talks get very technical and people don't always understand those, what we're talking about. Really, I think a really good way, a really accessible way for people to understand this is like, if you look at just kind of like look at your individual self, right? So like you are this unique person. You have your emotions and you have your thoughts, right? But you are not your emotions and you are not your thoughts. And if you can realize that, if you make that disconnect, you're experiencing them. But if you can make that disconnection, right? If you can disidentify that with your emotions, with your thoughts, well, it opens up a whole new world, because now you're not being controlled by them. These are not dictating your actions. These are not dictating your constitution. These are not dictating who you are. And you can then kind of like take the wheel back, and you can say, I'm not going to be impacted by them. I now have a conscious choice to allow them to impact me,
this way or that way, or I want to elect to take a different path. This is a massive expose into the power of human consciousness, the power, the hidden power that we have been sort of disconnected from. Again, these topics have been relegated to mystical conversation, but this is a real practical way. And when you do that, this is kind of like the deepest level, I think, of recognition, one of the deepest levels of recognition of what I talk about. But when you can do that, this is what real sovereignty looks like. This is when true autonomous action takes form, because you are now seeing things for what they are. You are now seeing the true nature of your existence and of your reality. And you can then again take control. And people look, naturally will make excuses. I can't control this because of that. I don't have enough money, or I don't know enough people. That's great. You know, some people are born in different places in life. Some people have different proclivities. But at the end of the day, these are just kind of circumstantial piece of information. You still have the ability to transcend your present situation. You still have the ability to improve your relation. But it's about you finding the tools to do that. And I think the perspective shift there is a massive sort of leap in that direction, where you again have the ability to take control of your destiny and to live. I talk about this in my book again, to live in coherence with yourself and in coherence with the world around you. And this is sort of the anchor of this kind of process of empowerment.
Yeah, I was just going to say, your credit score actually means absolutely nothing.
Right. It's all based on a construct. It's all based on, look, if you want to play this game this way, you know, this is important. Well, I mean, we can get into the whole.
No, but even if you break it down, like if you break it down, the people who have succeeded played a completely different game.
Absolutely.
It's all it is.
This is not a game. I think I forget what the guy's name is, but he's a Japanese real estate investor, and he calls the FICO score the Fido score, like the dog, right? Yeah. So like he says that, you know, nobody's who's you know obsessing with their credit score is going to understand what it means to manage money or to create financial kind of growth and stability. Because if you're tethering yourself to this construct, you're kind of missing the point, right? That's kind of like joke's on you.
So, what's our path forward? How do we get past this paradigm shift?
It's a difficult question, but I think that I think a very important piece to the puzzle is people having access to truth and knowledge. And I say this kind of seriously because we have been in so many ways been cut off from a lot of these essential truths and a lot of this essential knowledge, and we have been sort of fed a perspective that lends itself to certain agenda. Not in the conspiratorial understanding. Everyone kind of always leans towards that, but it's my belief that we are not victims of some puppeteers. That we are part of the discussion. We are part of this construction. We are part of this reality. We give consent. We elect consciously to take action, to believe, you know, etc. So, but if we are cut off from essential truths about ourselves, or even about the way geopolitics works, even about the way economy works, even about our understanding of our fiat currency. I mean, these are essential sort of tools that you need. I think that people need to have access, and people have to find a curiosity outside of swiping to the next, you know, hot girl on TikTok, or the next, you know, vacation in Corsica. I mean, whatever it might be. I mean, these need to be kind of part of the deal. And I think until people begin a kind of a thirst or given information that they've been cut off from, and then look internally, we don't really get anywhere, right? And this is again part of the whole the whole idea about, oh, you know, social media controls you and the media controls you. I mean, social media is there to make money, and it's this is mistaking the cause for the effect, right? And it was just common to do when you're looking to kind of place blame or identify something, right? But social media has an effect on you. It doesn't mean that it was created to do that, right? This is a big misconnection that's made. Same with media. Media is structured so that it will gravitate, it will capture your attention. It will bypass parts of your consciousness into your unconsciousness, so that you will be impacted in a way that will make you like the movie. So again, this is how it operates. But people need to, again, people need to look deeper, and look for deeper meaning, and search out truth, because if they don't, then there will be no evolution of collective consciousness. There will be no evolution of individual consciousness, and we need to find ways to usher that in, both for us societally, but also for personal development and growth. And in truth, these topics take us into the discussion on income inequality, take us into the discussion on the way that we construct economy, the way that we look at medicine, the way that we look at education. So this isn't an abstract conversation. Because in truth, when you peel back the layers, everything is one big ecosystem. In fact, there are many ecosystems. But again, we have been fed the lie of disconnection. We have been fed the lie that everything is, again, disconnected. This is a function or byproduct of this scientific materialist paradigm, among many other reasons. But so we have to start being given the full story, the full picture, and not just depend upon Aaron Scott and the Weird Canadian to be offering the insights. Right? This is kind of important.
The nice part is, so I have been experiencing a lot more of this as of late. With AIs, I think people are starting to take control over what they learn more than anything else. There is still a big chunk of people who are refused to. But I must say, as soon as I figured out how the economy works, how money works, how politics works, it really is easy to see how everything's coordinated, how everything moves, and how to position yourself so you don't have to worry about these things. It's really eye-opening if you just look past how complicated it is, how stupid it works, because it's so complicated so that people can skirt how it works. That's the reason for the complexity.
And in truth, I worked in complex, capital markets. I was, I don't think it gets any more sophisticated and complex than what I've done. And at the end of the day, it's really kind of anchored to very, very basic fundamental principles. I mean, the nomenclature is fancy, and the way that debt instruments are structured is fancy. The way that the financing is achieved is fancy, and there are covenants that seem to be hard to digest. But in truth, it's really, really kind of very simple, right? So again, it's about raising awareness and educating people on the way things work, the minutia. I think that maybe in those kind of revelations, people might not be so happy about it, because it's kind of like, well, how's this been going on, and how have I not been aware, and right? But that's a different kind of topic.
Yeah, I would like to get into. I just lost it. I had a segment there I was going to elaborate to. I lost it. Dang it. Because it was really. Can you just repeat what you said last?
Yeah, just that the financial systems, the way economy works, they're not really complicated, right? It's based, people are kind of are intimidated by the language, or they're intimidated by what they're seeing on TV and people talking about this, that. But when you boil it down, is that enough or not?
Yeah, that's okay. Where I was going. Yeah, when you boil it down, it's really, really easy to see what the reality is, and it really is just somebody else's reality being pushed elsewhere. I want to get into where we lost our curiosity for this. Is this coordinated? Is this just us being? I remember where I was going. Actually, we're going to back up on that.
Okay.
Do you think a good path forward is to stop blaming and just start actually fixing?
I think that's absolutely right, and I actually, in chapter 12 of my book, I make this very clear. I highlight really kind of how we got to where we are, and I bring it to people's forefront. Things from enclosure to colonization to slavery. I mean, I talk about really what builds empire and what built this empire, right? And I say really quite clearly, like there's no point in blaming or shaming or harping on our past. And I say it quite bluntly, like this is the advent of an immature egoic mind ruling over human beings. And that, I mean, if you really peel back and look at it for what it is, this is what's going on, right? So, but it's about seeing the mistakes we've made and then evolving. And we don't evolve unless we understand what's going on, unless we understand the minutia. Because in truth, most people go about their everyday lives thinking that this is just the way it is. We just have to be driven this way. Our compass is structured this way because this is natural. It's not natural, right? And this is we get into this topics about like the matrix, all this stuff. Well, the matrix is not what we've been told it is in many ways, and the matrix in many ways has been internalized. And I go into this in my book, and I talk about how how we embody the consciousness of these systems, of these societal systems, of the institutions that uphold these systems. And well, what does that mean? It means that when you're brought up in a capitalist society. First of all, capitalism is all grand and glory, and there's nothing better. And to think otherwise, you're a communist. I mean, this is a program. This is a kind of a programmatic trick, right? I believe in capitalism. First of all, in the current crony, late stage, corrupt capitalism we're operating now, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work for obvious reasons, right? But the point is that when you're brought up in this economic model, when your education system was structured at the turn, in the States, which was structured at the turn of the 20th century by, industrial capitalists, using the Prussian model, which was to quite literally create, docile workers. You are told to digest information and then regurgitate it. This is where your worth is derived from. You're put into this pseudo survival of the fittest construct with your peers, and it's the people who perform under this construct that declares your supremacy. I mean, this method of indoctrination, this method of digesting worth, is deeply psychological and transcends past high school, and it bleeds into the way that you look at yourself and the world around you. And what happens is people don't realize this because they don't look at it, I think, in many ways the way that I do or you do or other people do. But I was talking to another guy the other day, which you have these people who they perceive to be standing on the apex of a mountain, holding holding keys to 3 homes and 2 cars, and this is the divine destiny. This was all of my own volition. This is my own. I came up with this. But in truth, it's not what's actually going on. I mean, you've been programmed in a way to believe that this is what it's about. That what you value is X, Y, Z. That what life is about is X, Y, Z. Why you're doing what you're doing is just the way it is. This is a misnomer. This is not the truth. Not to say that it's bad or good, but it's about being aware of what's actually going on. And what's interesting is that, because I don't want to be normative here, but what's interesting is that most people, you'll discover, you hear the same cliche over and over again. Money doesn't buy happiness. I feel empty. I wish I did this. I wish I did that. Which is what it's a nice luxury to say when you're not scraping by and struggling. But the point is that when you're looking to do things in life, and you've lived your entire life based on a program, based on scaffolding that you are unaware of, right? This is what the discussion's about, and it's about hopefully showing people that there are other ways to look at the reality. And it's also, again, this is very important as well. This is not about poo-pooing money or poo-pooing financial stability. This is not what this is about. But it's about operating with autonomy. It's about operating with sovereignty, not being led by the sort of the restraints of scarcity, of financial survivalist kind of mentality. This does not breed anything evolutionary. This breeds fear. This breeds, again, a scarcity mindset. This breeds an easy way to control people. It's when you're able to kind of like cheat the game, and you're able to, again, when you're able to find who you are and then live from that place. So living from the internal into the external, not from the external into the internal. This is what's actually going on, right? So it's when you live with your truth, with who you are, when you pursue things that actually satiate you, that actually are part of your true ambition. This is, and I talk about this in my book. This is the secret life hack, because
Yes.
this is what actually breeds success, not just internal coherence and internal alignment, but external success. Well, why? Because you're living through truth. You're living through actual alignment. And when you do that, you're not worrying about other people. You're not focused on externalities. You're not letting your egoic mind dictate your behavior. You're living from a place of honesty, of integrity. And this is why, and you find this, people don't maybe verbalize it in the way that I do, or people don't maybe have the awareness uh, that I have or that you have in having these discussions. But the most successful people embody this, not knowingly, but they embody it in different ways, right? So maybe, again, I think that they only get kind of like, they only get part of the story, where they think that this path is the only path. They're missing the other portion, which is again part and parcel to quite literally the universal laws, the universal code, where you can't disregard the collective. You can't disregard society. You can't disregard how that ripples into. And this is because they haven't gotten past their misunderstanding that everything is connected. They haven't made that connection yet, right? So there's this illusion of separation, of disconnection, and again, fragmentation transcends a lot of these discussions. But this is kind of the whole point of these discussions.
I just want to bring into like a real life example. So if we take Elon Musk, he's done so much for humanity. Like the reason we have electric cars now, Tesla was one of the big factors in that. He's pushing for us to go to Mars and create rockets, and now even Canada's created a spaceport for this technology. We now have internet coming from satellites. Like this is collective helpfulness, and that's why he's built this empire, is because he's done great things for us. Put aside all his political beliefs and everything else, he's done for the common good. Is why he's gained so much. But I do want to put into perspective that everybody seems to be operating in this scarcity mindset, and we have not been in scarcity since the late 90s. Like right now, we have the most robust supply chains ever. Nobody should have to go without anything. It's just a choice.
That's absolutely right, and it's about how you construct your life, and how you look at yourself, and how you look at the world around you, right? What's also very interesting is this overlay of the indebtedness of countries around the world. We have we're in $350 trillion in debt. United States 37 plus trillion. It's like, well, what does that even mean? There's abundance everywhere, right? Everybody should be able to live and to live a peaceful, calm life. Well, this is kind of really the root issue here when it comes to the understanding the individual part of the collective, where the scarcity that exists around us, that is prevalent around us, is manufactured, and in truth, it's only through manufactured scarcity that anything has real value. When it really comes down to it, we're talking about the essentials, and there are cartel. There's the oil. There's OPEC, the oil cartel. They own 8 countries that own all the oil. They set the price. It's not based on supply demand economics. We have diamonds. De Beer was caught hoarding, hundreds of millions hundreds of thousands of tons or something worth of diamonds under cities to prop up the value. So we operate under this illusion of value, but in truth, and the dollar has no value. The loonie has no value, right? So the point is that we don't see it for what it is, and this is what maintains empire. This is what maintains power structure. It is the scarcity. And when oligarchs or when billionaires who control industry, when they put their interests above others, when they put the scarcity model to maintain their power, to maintain, and they can rationalize however they want, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're just not caring about anybody else. To whether they can say it's for my kids or for my, it's not really for your kids, right? Because your kids and your grandkids are going to live in a world that you've sculpted unknowingly, unwittingly, right?
Mhm.
But this is what's actually going on. This is where the conversation needs to be pushed because um, people feel like things are out of their grasp, out of their control. They don't know why. This is why. It's because we have sanctified a manufactured scarcity model of economy. We have sanctified a false understanding of our place in economy. We're fed this Darwinian survival of the fittest model. This is a lie. This is a
Yeah.
fraud, and he even says it is, right? So, but again, this is about, we talk about collective consciousness, right? This is about how we've sculpted our understanding of ourselves in the way we operate and interact in the world around us. So of course we are in many ways programmed. Of course we are fed stories and narratives and beliefs that dictate our perception of ourselves in the world around us. To think otherwise is to be completely unconscious. Right? This is what the matrix discussion is about. It's about how human consciousness has been sculpted and molded to accommodate industry, to accommodate economy, and whatever it might be, whether it's in communist China or America. I mean, so everybody's filled with a certain ideology, with a certain cosmology, epistemology, and we're detached from that. We're detached from this knowledge.
It's just funny that it's now coming to fruition that we're actually seeing it. But I want to ask: is this the information age? Is this what's causing us to actually finally learn about all this, or like I don't want to say the information age. Like AI is really really ripping apart all of our information, all of our structures. Um, is
I think,
Was this
yeah,
needed?
I think that what you're seeing, I think what you've seen is, and it's kind of interesting the way things work, right? Because you hear in different kind of areas, belief systems, whether even kind of like economists or sociologists or philosophers. I mean, people talk about kind of like this idea of the evolution of human consciousness, new Earth. I mean, things of this nature, right? Talk about the antichrist, whatever kind of construct you're using, right? It's all kind of telling the same story, right? And it really comes down to the way, and we haven't talked about this in depth yet, but this is a big part of my book. It's kind of the underpinning of my book, but the way the universe works, and the universe exists on multiple planes, right? And the universe operates through interdependent polar opposites. What does that mean? Well, it means that in order for action to take place, in order for things for people to create, in order for the natural world to create, it requires an interplay between polar opposites, whether it's emotion and thought, or good and bad, or fear and love, whatever they might be. But this is what propels action. This is what propels, um, quote unquote, evolution, right? So and it manifests itself again across planes. So what you're seeing here is we have been pushed so far into this. It's characterized as this masculine, and justifies the means, logic, measurement. Again, this is a part of our programming, what we've sanctified, and that eventually, and this is the idea of karma, the universe will snap back. And we are seeing it snapping back. We're seeing people being pushed economically, financially. We are seeing, we were kind of kept in the dark a lot. And I think COVID brought a lot of this out, where there was a distrust in media, with distrust in government. Well, it was pushed to such an extreme. And I think what we're seeing is through media, through TikTok, through podcasts, through alternative set pieces of information, people are coming to new realizations, coming to, I think, new heights in understanding of self and the world around us. And I think that this is, and not to get too metaphysical, but I think it's an interesting kind of discussion, an interesting comparison of this is kind of just part of the bigger story here, in that we need to snap back. And how that snapback happens is kind of going on right now. We're figuring it out, but we know that our again, sanctified institutions, our sanctified economy, our economic models, our sanctified religious structures are not working. They are the old paradigm, and it's about, reimagining and refiguring and retweaking ways to usher in new structures, new ways of living life. And it's interesting. We'll see how it plays out, but it's interesting to see how the power structures are holding on, right? I mean, you see what's going on in England with the digital IDs. It's like anybody who signs up for digital is completely unconscious. I mean, do they not get it? Do they not see the control mechanism? How literally everything can be controlled. What you eat, where you go, it bleeds right into social credit score. So it's kind of like, it's insane that people would willingly do that, is to show you how disconnected from reality they are. They don't get it. They can't make the connections. This is symptomatic of, I think, this being shielded from truth and knowledge and deep understanding, right?
And it's funny you mentioned that too, because the digital ID, if done properly, would be good. The problem is how it's implemented. That's literally the only issue.
But that's how all of these things are. They're all because look, there's always kind of like a good side or a bad side to it. But it always seems to be pushed to the bad side. It always seems to be a lever. Like it's all kind of like deception, right? Where like look in the States what happened with the Patriot Act after 9/11. I mean, what a joke. People consented to giving up all of their privacy to fight the terrorists. I mean, what a scam. I mean, like, this is such a joke, but again, it's painted as if it's for the betterment of society and for your protection, but it's not protecting you from any of this. Since when did government care about protecting you? They care about pushing hegemony. They care about gaining power.
It's funny you mentioned that, because right now in Canada, we're fighting back on all of this. So we already have some censorship laws in place. We're putting in more. We have resource development laws. We're suffering. We have an affordability crisis because of red tape, and it's like we've all put ourselves in this position, and it's half the population is like not even cluing in what's coming. That's one of the reasons I started this channel, was to just be like, hey guys, like, we need to actually sit down and think about this, because when you take Canada's history, we've always been the ones that are like, wait, we want to research this and make sure we get it right. So I did a deep dive into our monetary system, and it was trying to become the U.S. monetary system. And then Canadians stood up and were like, no, we need to change how they do it because it doesn't provide us value. But even Canadians have lost that understanding. But I appreciate that we're getting to this awareness. Where do you see us in 20 years?
Tough answer. I think that what you'll see is, I think you could see some drastic change. I think you could see anything from something in the way of a, kind of like a not a civil war, but like a real schism in society where there's real pushback, where protests become violent, where people could be shot. I mean, stuff like that, because again, people can only kind of scrape by and go along with it for so long, and eventually they're going to look to find the person accountable. They're going to look to incite justice. And what's funny is politicians and the legislature is really just kind of like a guardian between the special interests and then the people. So you see these big protests in the streets about policy, about gender identity rights, and about immigration reform. These are all important, or genocide. These are all important things, and people should care about them. But all the billionaires and oligarchs and guys who run multinational corporations, they're probably like, oh, great, they're talking about this stuff again. Because at the end of the day, it's all a discussion about economics. It's about freedom. This is where we get freedom from in this paradigm, right? About having the ability to do what you want, to not be chained down by a system. And the more we are pushed and pulled between Democrat and Republican, or between some political party, this is such an illusion. And this is the biggest illusion. because it's all part of the same story behind the scenes. They're all passing the same self-interest based laws. This is again to be asleep at the wheel, to understand what's going on. So I think that in an extreme case that could happen. In a great case, you could see leaders come into the fore that actually care about the human condition, that actually care, because this is really a discussion on caring about humanity before corporate profit, before, again, the shareholder maximization model is the biggest cancer to the world, right? But it's about people who are willing to put their foot down and not be just the default corrupt politician. Oh, this guy gave me PAC money. This guy gave me money to run for office, so I'm going to be tethered to this person forever. I mean, this is like just it must feel so cheap and disgusting to wake up every day to live like that. But so we hopefully there will be people put into power that will legislate and do so for the betterment of the world and of humanity. And until that happens, I'm just not sure where else this would go, because corporations certainly will not self-regulate. There will be no corporate government. But again, we have to be careful, because it's not like the socialist model is actually what's good for us either. We see what happens there, and it's about, with all of these economic systems, it's about the consciousness behind them evolving. It's about re-understanding your place in the ecosystem. It's about re-understanding how all of this matters and why it matters. So until we reshape that, but until we really anchor ourselves in what I call our actual reality, our actual constitutional existence, if you will, things will just it'll be like, you're at a theater and you're rearranging the seats. Nothing will actually change, right? So this is kind of eventually, hopefully, what ends up happening. But it'll be interesting. I don't have the crystal ball, but I think that it could go in a stark direction either way.
I feel you. I made a song just yesterday about how we need to actually shape how our future is going to be made. Like, we need to stop being passive about this. We need to actually start contributing. And the stupid part is, contributing is just helping others. It's really, really stupid. Like, I have a business model for a self-sustaining grocery store that would actually bring groceries local and cut out literally every supply chain and bring money to the grocery store, like, not to use it for food instead of a marketing place. But it's like nobody wants to buy into that stuff. These are the new paradigm. We need localization of resources that can serve communities, and then we add distribution to serve the rest of the economies. Like,
Absolutely.
We need to start thinking small and growing big.
And we operate, as you know, under a globalist economy, a globalist model, which is the biggest cancer. I don't care what people say. It's the biggest cancer to society, because we have cut off local ownership, local economy. We have cut off regional economy. We have in the States, we gutted the entire middle class and shipped manufacturing overseas, right? I mean, it was great for the multinational corporations, but it's toxic for the actual human beings living, right, in the real world. So again, we've constructed this, I call it a synthetic overlay, and you can look at it in many different ways, where the institutions, where the systems were supposed to serve humanity, but now humanity serves the systems, right? This is the fundamental problem here, and this is why you get pushback with ideas like yours, because, well, everybody's mouth isn't being fed, the kickbacks aren't there, the supply chain, the supply chain loopholes aren't being exploited, right? This is kind of what's going on. So yes, but eventually, again, when people become more aware, when people understand the impact that it has, right? They're not buying T-shirts from a company, even if they're $5, that utilizes sweatshop labor in Bangladesh. They're not buying food from a company that dumps artificial flavorings and carcinogens into their food unwillingly, or buying produce from a grocery store that's tainted their food supply with glyphosate, known causes of autoimmune disease, endocrine disruption. I mean, but people just go about their daily life because that's just the way it is. But it's not just the way it is, right? And we have the ability to change it. We just have to have people who are knowledgeable. And this is why information and knowledge is power, because when you have the information, you not only have the ability to govern yourself better and live the life better, more fulfilled, but you have the ability to control society. You have the ability to literally control how people live their life and elect to either nourish that life or extract from it.
It's a very we definitely need to have another conversation on this at some point. So
we barely scratched the surface here. What do you mean? I didn't even know. Did it start yet? Did the conversation
oh
start?
yeah. So I'll just give you the last 5 minutes to promote who you are, where you're at, and anything else that we might have missed. Keep it within 5 minutes so that we.
I'll be quick. I'll be quick. Yeah. So no. I just recently wrote this book, Before We Forget: The Guide to Personal and Collective Awakening. And what I really try to do in the book is I try to highlight for people our connection again to something tangible, to an idea of the divine, of source, of God, whatever it might be, and anchor it in actual reality in the natural world, in the quantum field, and all of these things, and to reshape and to reframe our place in that ecosystem, because we are not living in nature. We are not living in nature. We are nature experiencing itself. We are biological beings. People kind of miss that connection. But we breathe in air and expel carbon dioxide. The microbes in our body, which dictate literally consciousness, the way that we exist in the world. We in many ways we borrow from them. We co-create with them, but we don't realize this, right? We think that we're doing it all on our own, and no one's helped us, and we're just. So again, we operate under these illusions, and what I try to do is I try to anchor people back into reality, into a real connection to the natural world, the natural laws, the universal laws that have been hidden from people, in many ways by religious institutions, but that's for a different discussion. And I try to show people how, I also try to show people how these illusions and this quote unquote programming, if you will, bleed into economy, into education, into the medical system, the medical industry, and how detaching your identity from them, detaching and seeing through the programming is hugely empowering and can create sovereignty and autonomy, and is crucial to your health, and then crucial to the evolution of society and the evolution of collective consciousness, and how that looks and how that can be. I do it in a way that I think is digestible, right? This is the whole point of the book, where it's accessible. My website, theaaronscott.com, 2 A's, 2 T's. I offer coaching. I offer speaking gigs, so I'm accessible there. I don't want to go over my time, so that gives a good foray into me and where you can connect with me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure we definitely need to do another podcast, because I have the theory of religion is the root of all evil, so that would be a nice topic to run off of.